You ever wonder what it's like to go to an actual surgical tech school? This is the video. Hey guys, and welcome back to another Surgical Tech Tips. Today is a great day. I was invited into College of Southern Nevada. This is CSN, and this is Chris right here. He is the director of the program here for surgical technology. We've got some of the students here, and we'll be talking to everybody throughout this video and really just breaking down what to expect when you're going to be going to a surgical tech school. Now, this school is an associate degree school. You graduate with an associate degree in applied sciences. And I really just want to simplify and break down what you might see when you come to school. And that is, going through curriculum, getting you prepared for the OR through mock surgeries and setting up sterile fields, and then actually going out into the field at an externship site where you'll be working at a hospital and actually working on real humans. So Chris and I want to talk about the curriculum now and just kind of break down what you're going to be learning throughout the school year and what it might look like. For the most part, majority of your learning is going to be based around anatomy and physiology. Anatomy being, the study of the structures of the body, and physiology being, how those structures work together as a whole. You can talk to you more about that.
Yeah. So the anatomy and physiology is super important to what we do and the way our program works, because as surgical techs, if we're helping with a knee replacement, we need to know the bones and the muscles around the knee, what we need to avoid, what we're going to come into contact with. And because we're focused on the instrumentation and the techniques involved in the incision and the knee replacement itself, we've got to have a lot of background knowledge on the anatomy going into that procedure.
Absolutely. I've said it before in a couple other videos, but when you're a part of a surgical team and you're there at the field, you're all watching each other's backs, really. I mean, the surgeon is the head. They have the most education. They know what they're doing. They're doing the surgery. But there's multiple eyes on the surgical field as well, and you, as a surgical tech, are one of those eyes. So if you possibly see like a mistake that may happen, you're the person to voice that mistake. I mean, knowing the anatomy and physiology of the surgery that you're going to be assisting in is a key skill to have in this position. All right, so on top of the curriculum and the anatomy and physiology, another big part of the curriculum is going to be learning aseptic and sterile technique, and that is directly applied to setting up your sterile field and working in the OR specifically. Which brings us to the next point, and on to the next step here is setting you up and getting you ready for your externship. So this classroom here has two mock surgery rooms, and they look like regular ORs. What can I say? I mean, there's lights, there's tables, there's a patient, there's a bed. It looks like a normal OR, and in that mock surgery room, you will be learning how to set up a field and actually, do the surgeries alongside your teacher as the surgeon and assisting throughout the surgery.
Yeah, that's, I think most people that go through a surgical tech program will find that the lab is really one of the most, if not the most important part of the program.
Absolutely.
The lecture, when you're sitting in a classroom like this, anybody can sit here and listen and learn about orthopedics and general surgery. You can read and study, I think pretty much anybody can do that. That's not much different from an English class or a math class. But what's really, really important for our students is they have to know how to perform in the operating room.
Yeah.
So just like you said, our labs are fully equipped. Everything is real equipment. Everything works because we've got to set you up. We got to set our students up in 16 weeks. They've got to be ready to walk into the operating room, a real operating room with real live patients. So our 2 lab days a week for 16 weeks is where we prepare the students with mock surgery. Yeah, we're really lucky here in that CSN has a vet tech program as well, and they do animal surgery here on this campus. So for the last 2 years, our students around October, November, once we know about passing and draping, we get to go and help in surgery with animal surgery. So spaying, neutering. I think next week they're going to get to see an orchiopexy or scrub in on an orchiopexy. And I think that that's just super valuable because you're really doing the job.
Yeah.
And it's, it's a handful of instruments compared to the instruments that we would use on
Trays
a human,
and trays, yeah.
right? But it's, at least you're in it and you get it. We really want to do the best that we can to prepare our students and make sure that, see how they're going to react when it's a living being in front of them. And you can't do that with simulators, but you can do it with living things. So we're super lucky that we get to do that with our vet tech program.
Absolutely. Last major part of your schooling will be the externship. Arguably the scariest part of the schooling because you are actually going out into the field itself. Schools can have partnerships with multiple hospitals in your town. It really depends on how big your town or city is.
So I'd say for our 8 students, we have at least 22 clinical slots divided between about probably 5 different facilities.
Yeah.
So we got to make sure that every student has an operating room to go into.
Yeah. And now when you are out in that externship, it's an entirely different experience from here in the classroom. You are actually assisting in surgery and doing surgery. Majority of the time, probably 80% of your time, you're going to have a preceptor. That preceptor is an actual employee, surgical tech from that hospital that you're partnered up with, and they're there to help teach you and get you through the day and through your sterile setups, throughout the procedures, everything. The other 20% is schools have specific teachers that come in, grade you throughout the procedures. If you want to.
Yeah, it's definitely not just me. We have clinical instructors, just like Shane said. For the majority of your day, you're with a preceptor. In the morning, if Shane is one of our students, let's say, okay, Shane, you're going to go with John and help with every procedure that he helps with.
Yeah.
Now, if something happens, because it will, like you said, it's scary. It's super scary.
It absolutely is.
And that's fine. That's the way it's supposed to be, I think.
Yeah.
But because it's that way, there might be a situation where Shane gets flustered, or he gets asked to leave a room, or he just doesn't feel good about going into a procedure he hasn't studied or isn't sure about. We have clinical instructors, and that's what they're there for. So they're with our groups of students, just like you said, evaluating, grading, but also just kind of being a buffer between the student and the facility, just to make sure if one of our students gets a needle stick or something like that, our instructors are there to make sure that we follow all the policies and we're making sure that everything's okay for the student.
Absolutely. And I can say the most intimidating surgeries during my externship were the ones where my teacher was in the room with her little notepad in the corner writing everything down, and you're constantly wondering like what they're writing down.
You can do fine, like for 3 months. You're a superstar, you know how to set up, and then your instructor shows up and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna fail, what's happening?
The heat's on.
Yeah, for sure.
So one more segment I wanted to talk about is, what happens after graduation and what can you do to, better your chances for finding a job, after your externship.
Yeah, so we talked about the clinical rotations when our students actually go out into the hospitals and work on real people. That's 26 weeks of a working job interview.
Yeah.
Our students are there the whole time. So if you want a job there, then get a job there.
Yeah.
Show up on time, work hard, never ever let them see you sitting around or on your phone too much. You know what I mean? It's treat it as a job interview. And then the idea is that you have a job before you graduate.
Yeah.
That's the magic wand idea for everybody. When that doesn't happen, it's just like anything else. It's a full-time job to get a job.
Absolutely.
I think so. You got to get out there,
throwing your resume out everywhere.
and one thing that we do in our spring semester, we have a class that is like professionalism, resume writing. We do mock interviews, so we have representatives from the hospitals, from HR come and sit and do a panel interview with our students, because I think that that's something that if you're from outside of the medical world, you might not be ready for a panel interview. Then that's when you got 3 or 4 people asking you questions, so we do that.
You'll have like all the OR directors, you might have a couple surgical techs in the room, or nurses, OR nurses in the room, and you got like 5 or 6 people as a panel interviewing you at the same time. It can be really intimidating. So having a practice course like that would be ideal to kind of set you up for that.
Yeah. So resume writing, and then once you graduate, we have career services here that we get job listings that we can kind of disperse to all the graduates. It's really just, and also those relationships when you're in the clinical setting of, I know this person at this surgery center, they might be hiring. It's networking and just working to get a job. Yeah, that's what it comes down to.
I can't stress it enough. I know I've talked about it in previous videos, but really making an impact at your externship site is by far one of the most important things you can do during those 3 to 6 months you're going to be there. I've seen some bad experiences. A couple people that I went to school with got into arguments with preceptors outside of the OR, inside of the OR. We had one student that got into an argument with a surgeon. I mean, those things just they don't happen. That should not happen. Keep to yourself and learn as much as you can. That's what that experience is for. It's not there to get in arguments with people. It's supposed to be a learning environment for you to better your future and your education.